Welcome back. You're still watching World Insight with me, Tian Wei. During this year's UN General Assembly, world leaders spoke their minds at virtual meetings on the COVID-19 pandemic. Many called for renewed efforts to meet the UN 2030 Sustainable Development Goals, the road to prosperity for humankind, many believe. They recognize that ending poverty must go hand in hand with sustained economic growth and cover basic needs such as education, health, and jobs. UNESCO, the United Nations Educational, Scientific, and Cultural Organization, is in the front line of the cause. Earlier, I talked to Dr. Marielza Oliveira, the director of the UNESCO Beijing Office, who's an outspoken guardian of cultural heritage protection. She emphasized the need for international community to talk and to better understand each other. We also discussed the challenges facing education and cultural exchanges amid the pandemic. Take a look. I know you are working very hard in China, but the challenge of COVID-19 is for everyone in the world. So the protection, preservation of cultural heritage sites, museums, public and national parks, extremely challenging right now.
Indeed. You know, it's one of the biggest challenges we have. As a matter of fact, when you think about the pandemic, it has affected 30 million people in terms of health, but in terms of education, at some point 1.5 billion students, and in culture, almost everyone. For all the people who derive their livelihoods or enjoy culture as an element of resilience and so on, they have had, you know, a tremendous hit. All the artists, craftspeople, creative artists, you know, they have had a hit in their livelihoods. So it's a big challenge right now. Close to 90% of the museums of the world had to close, you know, and to stop receiving visitors simply because of social distancing and lockdown protocols, you know, to avoid infection. Which means that, you know, the challenges of keeping culture going have never been as hard as they are now. First, we need to think about how to ensure that we can actually reopen these cultural venues safely and restart the festivals, exhibitions, and all the other magnificent ways in which we share our culture in a safe way that, that does not create potential clusters of transmission, for example. But we also have to think of how culture can continue going during lockdown periods. You know, it's not the case here in China anymore, but it's still the same in many places, including my own home country, Brazil, that we keep, you know, considering how culture can help people, how we can help culture continue to go on, and at a time that it's been so difficult. So what UNESCO has done in that regard, you know, first we held a global meeting of cultural ministers. China was a very strong participant and sent a very positive message, you know, highlighting the importance of culture as a means for resilience for people and showing how culture itself is very resilient. It keeps going, but we had to actually move culture mostly online. So we have fantastic events around the world going on. We had this big debate in China. We had the Resiliart debate with people from all different walks of cultural life, with dancers, with musicians, with film, and so on.
Beautifully said. I think recently we've seen some theaters in China reopened and performances being put on stage. The dancers were galloping almost on the stage. Just think about the happiness of being able to dance again in front of the audience they admire. So these are all exciting news, but the underlining more philosophical thinking about how digital world can coexist with the physical world, and what would that mean in terms of challenge, though, of cultural interactions
You know, China has a marvelous, marvelous troupe of deaf dancers.
Yes.
You know, and one of the most beautiful, you know, capable dance troupe that I've ever seen. One of the things that they were saying to us is that on top of the difficulties that they have of face masks, they can't really read, you know, instruction and hidden behind a, you know, a face mask like that. So the challenges are so many. But the thing is, culture is also very adaptive and very flexible. Most creative endeavors that humanity has, and they are finding ways of interacting with the public, even if it's through an online screen. And technology is helping quite a lot. For example, museums, many museums, and in China, an incredible number of them have started online tours, yes. You know, with 3D and virtual reality and all the different aspects that allow you to kind of immerse yourself in the beauty that surrounds you through an exhibition in a museum and so on. So that's one of the ways, you know, keep culture going using technology to give you the feeling of being there, you know. But the other is actually on various social groups that have cropped up between artists and their publics to actually exchange on a more deeper, profound level than they actually can exchange with an audience that is just watching, you know. When you're dancing for an audience, yes, you feel the energy, but you're not really talking to them. But social media has allowed that kind of two-way interaction to take place as well. So it's not all a loss in that sense.
The other thing I really want to ask you is about the protection of cultural heritage sites. Earlier, there were concerns whether there are enough protections of cultural heritage sites, whether the mindset is right, and whether there's enough knowledge of and determination to research and investigate. But now you see the public awareness of that is ever increasing, almost skyrocketing in a way, encouraging and rallying the government's efforts to work on that area. How do you see this change in a way that's really just taking place over the past few years?
I love this. This is so heartwarming, you know, to see the public cherishing their heritage and jumping in, you know, to do what they can in order to protect it. And it's, you know, it's so beautiful to see that. And I'm very, very pleased that we could be here to see that happen in China. You know, you mentioned the 40 years of the UN in China. UNESCO has been here for 35 years, and the first year was the first year in which China actually had a few heritage sites designated. Now, after 35 years, it has the largest number of heritage sites in the world. And the public recognizes the importance and the value, the outstanding universal value of heritage sites, and is becoming more and more aware of the need to do their part in conservation and to make sure that they are maintained and transmitted properly. But not just heritage sites, traditions and practices as well. There's a renewed interest in young people to learn about their traditions and to seek to actually practice some of those. And of course we are going to do and continue to raising awareness of the public, because an interest in conservation and safeguarding doesn't mean a knowledge of how, you know, and you know, so it's really important that we actually take this incredible motivation, this beautiful willingness to support, and transform it into an informed willingness to support in order for them to actually for the general public to actually be able to do that.
I know you've been visiting many of these sites. You've been talking to the community there. You've been interacting with officials. I read a lot of information about your tours, in fact, before coming here. So give me some example, please.
Well, I mean, the public loves their heritage sites. They really do. So when they visit, they touch it. It's not a good thing. So you see what I mean?
Yes.
When you put your hand on the wall, it's one hand. Yeah, but multiply that by 1 million visitors. And you could do some real damage, to some fragile frescoes or something like that. So, explaining to the public that, please admire it. But but be aware that your admiration has to be a hands-off one, and you should not be taking a little rock to take home with you as a souvenir, because that little rock maybe have been a part, that fell from a particular place and would need to be put back, and things like that. I mean, of course, it doesn't happen so much here in China, So explaining to the public that your love and admiration should be expressed in a way that maintains the integrity of the sites. It's very important.
You see, these days, celebrations are taking place around China. I'm sure you're talking to many of them. For example, the Forbidden City and 600 years anniversary. 270 years of the Summer Palace here in Beijing. They're all celebrating in big ways, and they're just trying so hard to find out the roots of culture and how it has been serving as a bridge between China and the rest of the world. How do you see a combination of both searching for the root and searching for inspiration as to how China functioned in history in terms of interacting with the rest of the world at a time, interestingly, of uncertainty when it comes to politics?
Heritage sites belong to humanity. So in a way, they are the collective property of all of us. Some of them are special in that they have signs of the exchanges that have taken place over time between different cultures. One of the most beautiful exhibitions I've ever seen in the Palace Museum was of gifts from foreigners that were given to the Emperor of China, and that were exhibited alongside some of the beautiful pottery and artifacts that China itself has produced. And it's a fantastic thing, because it was a fantastic exhibition, because first it was a demonstration of very positive interactions that have taken place in the past, of signs of friendship between cultures, between civilizations, that culture itself materialized. The other thing was to see, how these artifacts, the Chinese artifacts and the foreign artifacts, sometimes were very similar in terms of the techniques used and so on, showing that previous exchanges had taken place. But you see already that over thousands of years there had been exchanges that benefited both sides. And that exchanges benefiting both sides is exactly what we need right now. What they, in China you call mutual benefits, win-win cooperation, and so on. Because the kinds of challenges we have nowadays, they require that very positive spirit, that willingness to engage in a way that benefits everyone, and having these kinds of signs in heritage sites that belong to humanity gives us, a feeling that what we had before, friendly exchanges that were positive to all sides, we can have again. We have the capacity to hold those.
You come to China at a critical time, shall I put it that way?
Oh, yes, I'm very lucky.
It's also an uncertain time in terms of how China works with the rest of the world, and how some of the other key players in the world look at international platforms such as the United Nations. From your perspective, working in cultural exchanges, education, and science fields in China and beyond in your early posts, how do you see our generation, literally speaking, will be able to provide a good answer to history?
Well, we're all trying to find the answer for that. And to me, the answer is essentially that we need to find common ground with all cultures that exist, with respect of diversity, respect for human rights, respect and tolerance towards other cultures and the ways of life. Because that's the only way, from values like that, that we can emerge and, engage in international cooperation. The challenges we face right now are particularly unique because at no time, in history, before, we actually had, literally, life-threatening challenges that are global in nature, like we have right now. The combination of all of those are beyond the capacity of any nation to address. We have climate change, we have the social and economic impacts of the pandemic that have left, literally, the ILO has released a report 2 days ago saying that the equivalent of 500 million jobs have been lost. We have a generation of students that have lost 1 year of education.
To say the least.
To say the least. Yeah. And we have, like we've been discussing, 90% of the cultural venues of the world closed and so on and so forth. So our challenges that go from the environment to geopolitics that have been quite acerbic, to say the least, lately, for the interruptions in trade that we've seen because of disruptions in value chain or because of animosity between countries. All those things are unique because we never had all of those piled up in one generation, in one group of people at the same time. So it's literally, it's tearing apart, the fabric of our societies. And we need to find ways in which we communicate better and that we are able to explain our viewpoints to each other and debate how we can agree, to what is the pathway forward. Because, and how we are going to divide the labor, the tasks of moving forward. What is the part that actually touches us? And how can we contribute to such an effort? One of the things that I find fascinating in China is how you have, the central government setting goals, and then, how it's decentralized, in terms of small goals, for different municipalities and, and provinces and so on. What part should you be contributing to this national goal? Well, multilateralism is essentially the same. It's us setting goals together, globally, and then saying, how can we do our part? And we have a set of goals. It's called the Sustainable Development Goals. We had agreed on those collectively. And of course, nationally, we need to actually pursue, the accomplishment of those goals together, because they are not only contributing to global goals, but they are also bettering the lives in our own nations and communities. So this is what I hope, that we will do to answer history, do our part in a multilateral environment.